Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Psychological Safety in the Face of Uncertainty. I'm Fatma, I'm with ThinkHuman and calling from home in New York today. I hope you, your families, and colleagues are well and healthy. And thank you for joining us today while as humans, we are facing a global challenge. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. We will be talking about how you can support your managers in these times and with the recent changes due to COVID-19. As you're getting settled, we would love to get the conversation started. One of the ways you will be interacting is by using the chat feature in the Zoom, and throughout the next hour, we will be asking you to go back to that and have a conversation with us. If you're looking for it, just hover over your Zoom window and you will find it in the lower right. This conversation will get richer and more helpful for you as you get involved. So please join. And for starters, we would love to know about you. What's your name and where are you dialing from? All right, welcome everyone. We have people from all over the world. And so why are you here today? We would love to know what knowledge or feeling you're hoping to gain out of this conversation. For anyone who is willing to share, please jump in the chat and let us know.
This is fantastic. There are people from everywhere. Sweden,
I know.
Canada, Dublin, New York, Seattle, more Canadians. Yay,
Well,
Canadians! Croatia.
Loving on.
I just go by.
Denmark, Mexico.
And before we dive into the discussion, I want to quickly introduce us. 15.5 is a continuous performance management solution that helps employees grow and develop just in 15 minutes each week. Through a lightweight check-in, 15.5 delivers everything a manager needs to impact employee performance, including continuous feedback, objective tracking, recognition, one-on-ones, and 360 reviews. ThinkHuman is a leadership development and manager training company, supporting leaders at all levels by driving lasting behavioral change and habit formation within themselves and their teams. Now I'm going to hand it over to Meredith, the CEO of ThinkHuman, who will be leading the discussion. Welcome, Meredith, and over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Fatma. And I'm so excited to see everybody here. Welcome. We are so happy that you are joining this conversation. And we have this incredible panel of leaders from high performance organizations that are sharing their personal leadership experiences and stories and taking your questions about psychological safety in these really unprecedented times. So panelists, I'm just going to ask you to wave or do your thing as I introduce you. We have Allie Hannigan, VP of People for Tiger Connect. Do you hear me? Uh-oh.
We hear you, Meredith.
Hear you.
Good.
You're frozen.
Should we just jump in and start introducing ourselves since Meredith's frozen for a sec?
Probably.
All right. I'm Mercer Carlin. I am a senior consultant and executive with ThinkHuman. Rajkumari.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rajkumari Neogy, and I'm an executive coach and a founder at iRestart.
Hi, and I'm Jennie Yang, Director of Talent Transformation at 15.5.
So Meredith is gone, and Meredith's our facilitator. So maybe we should just jump in and start talking. I think, what I'll just open with is there's been a lot of, in the chat, I can see a lot of people saying, how do I support remote people and how do I kind of make sure that people are working, but also getting the support that they need. And I think it's like such a good question. I think the first thing that I want to offer, and then I'll turn it over to my amazing panelists, buddies, but is that, this is really a time to be human and asking people the questions, how are you? How's your family? You know, what do you have the supplies that you need? And pressing into some of those questions that may come back with really tough answers, like, no, I'm not good and my family's not good, allows people to feel seen and heard. And I think more than anything right now, people want to feel seen and heard. So that's what I would offer right out of the gate.
Yeah, Allie, you had said some amazing things in our last panelist call about what you're doing at Tiger Connect, and I would love for you to share that with the audience, because that just blew me out of the water. So
yeah, so I think that we've been lucky, as I mentioned on our prep call, to kind of get some grounding in manager training around empathy, meeting people where they are, just kind of as a baseline. And some of that stuff just sounds very like basic and almost remedial, but I think in times where people's stress level is just inherently high, getting back to the basics and rooting people, especially managers, in what they should be doing every day, even if it sounds very tactical, I think is really helpful for people, because having just a mental checklist of, okay, this is my day, I'm checking in with my team, and here's some steps that I can take to make this easier for people is helpful. So we sent out kind of a manager guide around how frequently we should be checking in, kind of doubling down on rituals. You know, if you had a happy hour, like do that virtually. If you had a stand-up daily, do that virtually. And then just equipping managers with questions that they can ask during their one-on-ones around how are you feeling, what's on your mind right now. And one of my favorite ones, which wasn't one of my questions, it was someone on my team, is how can I make things just 10% easier for people, for you right now? This is different. You know, our workforce is not remote all the time, although we do have work from home, and kind of meeting people where they are. And that 10% for different people is going to be different. It could be work related, it could be process related, it could be communication, it could be a variety of things. So
Allie, a lot of people are asking if you could share that guide.
Yes, so I'm seeing in the chat, would you be willing to share? More than happy to share the resources that I have. And I would say creating a central place where people can go to get those resources has really helped, or a central Google Doc. So hopefully that's helpful, but that's sort of where we started with people.
Jennie, what are your thoughts with 15.5?
I was just going to add on to what Allie shared about, and as well as Mercer, around the human aspect at work, and you know, cultivating a culture at your company or even on your team where you honor the whole person. It's more important now than ever to really honor the whole person. And what I've realized throughout the past few weeks, that I always go back to this lesson of starting with yourself first, right? You can't give from an empty cup, and you have to fill your own cup first and give from the overflow. And so that has been a theme that I've been tapping into the past few weeks in particular during these times, because there will be times when I personally am experiencing anxiety, and therefore it's challenging for me to fully show up for my team members. And so just being able to honor the whole person and really see them in their whole being, whether it's work related or personally related.
Yeah.
And then I think the other aspect of that is making it known that it's okay not to be okay as well in these times.
I love what you're saying, Jennie. And I have this phrase that ran through my head, you know, for all the years that I was managing tons of people, which is there's doing a good job, and then there's being in good shape to do a good job. And I think at this moment, you know, there were some questions in the chat, you know, well, how do we make sure that people are being accountable, and how do we convince our people not to be, you know, focusing on keystrokes for the people who are working from home? I think, you know, phase one is what kind of shape are you in, and what kind of shape are people in? Because there does come a time, at least in my experience over the past 2 weeks, where you're like, okay, I got this thing. I'm home, I have resources, I have food, I understand how this current, you know, stay-at-home thing is going to work, and now I can focus outward. But for somebody who's not there yet and is really still in a panic state, trying to force them to try to do a good job is not the thing to do. It's let's get people in good shape, and then we can start focusing on doing a good job.
I want to just share that from from a kind of a coach perspective. So as you all know, many of you know that I focus on epigenetics and neurobiology as an executive coach. Ali, I love what you had to say about the stress levels are really high, because they are globally really high. And Jennie, the fact that you're saying honor the whole person, when your stress levels are really high, your immune system decreases. And what was really awesome that I heard when we started kind of the opening check-in with the panelists is that every single person on this call was meditating. Like, that's how they were showing up in their personal life. So part of reducing your stress levels is really getting to understand how to self-regulate. Breathing is a key issue in self-regulation, literally. I talk about this all the time. And the second thing are your thoughts. How are you thinking? And how are you being in relationship with yourself during this very difficult time? And getting to a place where you can reach out to people and talk about your feelings and talk about how you're doing is essential. And I think companies need to make space for that around the world, and really allow for that space to exist, so that there can be a continual calming of the nervous system, so that we can get through this together as a one collective.
I'm seeing in the chat that there's a lot of what do I do about the fact that I just got laid off? What do I do about my employees who are having to go out into the field every day? What do I do about the people who are on furlough? And I think, there aren't answers right now. There just aren't answers. There's no, manual for this. But I think that what we have to trust ourselves to do is to do the right next thing. I think it's a line from Frozen 2, which actually has some really good lines in it. But when all you can see is darkness and you can't see the future, just do the next right thing. So what is that thing? I don't know. I don't know what the next right thing is for the people who are going out into the field, but maybe telling them that you're thinking of them and that you want to do that next right thing is the next right thing. We can't plan, I don't think, more than about 2 or 3 days or a week ahead right now, because we don't know what the future is holding, but we can do that next right thing for ourselves and for the people around us.
I just kind of want to talk a little bit about this breathing piece, because some people might think that that's silly. But I also want to kind of emphasize and highlight that this coronavirus is actually a bronchial issue. When we exhale, we actually secrete acetylcholine, and that calms our entire nervous system down. I saw some comments about breathing in the chat window. And the longer you can exhale, the more acetylcholine you secrete in your system, the more that communicates to your brain and your nervous system that you are in a calm environment. And so, I work with a client who leads a team of, I think, 9 people. And she has started a breathing ritual with every meeting that she does now. And it's not more than 5 minutes, but she says it has changed the way that the team works together remotely. And they are all over the world. There's a guy in Dublin, there's a woman in Brazil, and it has really helped to keep that team cohesion together. So whatever ritual you can come up with, there's even this little thing called Wordsmith, and there are a bunch of questions. There's even something called Icebreaker. You can get that on Amazon. There's so many ways in which you can create this connection by just asking questions, and you're going to learn so much about who your peers are. That level of connection creates such a bonding experience as we are all remote right now.
Totally agree, Rajkumari. I've noticed, at least in my meetings, and it's kind of part of our culture to be relationship forward anyways, but it's almost like every call is starting with, yeah, that's great. Every call.
So I'm just holding this up so they can grab it.
Awesome. almost every call is starting with a more personal check-in and a like, how are you doing? And so if that's not your culture or you're struggling with that, I think these are such great resources just to get people in the mindset of being able to be productive during these times, and being able to move forward as a team, and feeling like, oh, I have people around me that are sort of in the same headspace as me. It's okay to be vulnerable.
It's so okay. And people are having so many feelings right now. They need to express them. And, you know, there's so much research that shows the moment you actually voice your feeling, it registers here in your prefrontal cortex on your right side. And that's another way in which you start to calm down. So I love that, Ali, so much. I'm just wondering, Jennie, if you have any other additional thoughts that you want to kind of jump in and share about
Yeah,
that.
Absolutely. And it's been neat to see people's responses to receiving this message around human first. And some of you already practice that at your organizations. And Josh Bearson, leading HR analyst, wrote this article a couple weeks ago about putting your people first as your company mantra, and at the same time giving them a voice. And so wanted to share something tactical that we did at 15.5 yesterday. So we have 3 weekly company-wide calls, one on Wednesday morning, and typically we open up with a 5-minute meditation led by someone in the company who's a meditation master for a month. And so 2 members of our executive team, as well as myself, we facilitated small breakout group exercises to discuss 3 questions. 1, how are you feeling? 2, what are you doing to be your best self? And 3, where are you doing in being the extraordinary? So we wanted to ensure that people were feeling safe, they were feeling heard, and the purpose of these question exercises was really to foster a connection between people. And in each breakout group, there were only 3 people, so they were able to have more of an intimate conversation. And we have about 200 employees worldwide. So again, we are at this time, in addition to many company rituals that we have, we want to continue to cultivate this sense of belonging, to not only, you know, their own safety, but also the broader ecosystem. And I actually wanted to touch on, oh, sorry, Rajkumari. Someone asked if we could demo the breathing. And so Meredith, I would love for you to perhaps demo the breathing with us in the audience.
I'm now back.
I'm seeing a lot of questions about the 3 questions you just asked, Jennie. Do you mind restating?
I'll post them in the chat.
Perfect.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. So on the note of breathing, let's just do that for a minute. So everybody, we're just going to do 3 breaths together. Put your feet on the ground. Close your eyes. Panelists, you can feel free to turn your camera off if that feels more comfortable to you for these 3 breaths. But with your body, feet firmly planted on the ground, feel the weight of your body on your chair and on your feet, and do 1 big inhalation at your own pace. And 2 more, again, at your own pace, feeling your breath, fill your lower belly and back. And the gravity of your body against your chair and floor. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back.
I love, someone mentioned in the chat, Name It to Tame It by Dan Siegel. That was really awesome. And one of the things I tell a lot of my clients that they can use when they're feeling stressed is this sentence structure that actually shifts the neurochemicals. So to name the feeling that doesn't feel good, and then to substitute that feeling with a more good feeling. So for example, it would be like, even though I'm feeling really scared right now, so whatever the cortisol feeling is, right? Even though I'm feeling angry or sad or confused, even though I'm feeling scared right now, and then you shift it with a more yummy neurochemical through gratitude. And that'll give you some kind of oxytocin or opioid. So it would be, even though I'm feeling scared right now, I'm really grateful that I'm at home safe. Even though I'm feeling scared right now, I'm so grateful that I have water available to me. And so if you do this out loud or silently to yourself 3 to 5 times, what you'll start to notice is naming it is actually going to help you calm down even further. That's definitely something that you can use. I wanted to also address Diana Wong's comment about peer recognition. And one of the ways in which you can address your peers is to include both recognition and appreciation. Recognition happens in the left hemisphere. It's an action-based, behavior-based experience. And appreciation happens in the right hemisphere, which is about relationship, values, and needs. So this is about, hey, what you did was awesome, and who you are is amazing. Like, I really appreciate how you're so punctual and your level of integrity, and you really got us where we needed to be. And thank you so much for meeting that deadline, right? So that's the difference. And so if you can do that in your one-on-ones, what you'll do is, again, start to create a sense of calm and the individual feeling valued and that they matter. And that I think is very essential right now.
Yeah, to jump on the heels of valued and that you matter and what you're doing, or to give people the experience that they are valued and that they matter. I want to send a question your way, Allie, which is, what are the ways that you're equipping managers to navigate these times? And any of you panelists jump in, but let's start with you, Allie.
Yeah, so we kind of touched on this when you were getting your video squared away, which I think we did okay at. And I'm going to share out some resources and figure out the best way to do that after this call, just around how to equip managers. But one other thing I would add to that is just thinking about connection frequency by person and kind of meeting the individual where they are. I have a variety of different personalities, as we all do on my team. And some people need like a daily check-in to say, hey, I'm working on these things right now. Are these the right things to be working on? And just like kind of getting in that headspace, checking in. Some people are, don't want to feel like that. And so I think meeting people where they are, asking them when and how they want to check in, and really just asking them like where you want to meet and talk about work or talk about personal stuff. The other thing, and I noticed someone just posted about Headspace. Right now, there's mental health resources, meditation apps, Calm, Headspace. There's physical exercise apps that are free or reduced cost that you can just do from home. We've shared those out with both managers and with our entire team and really encourage people to use those resources. Also, one random thing, telehealth. A lot of insurance providers right now are waiving telehealth fees. So if you actually do get sick, like encouraging managers to talk to their people about if you're sick, there's options to do check-ins with doctors remotely. I know these kind of things all seem sort of different, but it's just some of the stuff that's come up within the last week for us that I think have really helped people feel like, okay, I have resources, I know where to go on a variety of issues.
Meredith, there's so many requests for all of our insights, like from Allie, from Jenny, even from the things that I was saying. I'm wondering if when we send out the recording, ThinkHuman sends out the recording, can we just include a bunch of links from all of us to everyone? That would be so helpful. And what I'll do is I'll include my 99-page workbook that people can read through. There's exercises you can do on your own. And just want to also say that there's a belonging boot camp happening starting this Saturday to really focus on self-regulation and how to learn that. It's booked, but if you really want to come in, just LinkedIn me and I might let you in.
And yeah, we'll send out, we'll collect all the resources and share those out with the recording. Merce, it looked like you were going to say something, and then maybe Jenny too.
Yeah, I wanted to speak to something that I think somebody named Peter put up in the chat about how it's stressful to try to be your best self right now. And, as we were preparing for this and thinking about psychological safety, somebody mentioned, are we bringing psychological safety to ourselves? And I had never really turned was that you, Rajkumari, who said it?
No, I don't know, but whoever said it, that was awesome.
Yes, yeah. So I think, the extent to which we're sort of beating ourselves up, and even on this phone call, like, holy shit, everybody's doing all this amazing stuff for their employees, and they've already thought about all of this, and there's all these resources, and I didn't know about them. Like, we all have to give ourselves the benefit of, like, we're all doing our best. There is nobody on this call who woke up this morning saying, I plan to just screw this whole thing up. Like, you jumped on this call to try to be your best self for your employees and get some inspiration. And, yeah, we're all not doing all the things we quote unquote should be doing, but shoulding ourselves is not helpful. So, it's hard to provide psychological safety for others when you're over there beating yourself up and feeling like you're not doing enough. So practicing, I'm enough, and therefore you're enough, and we're going to get through this together, is just huge. And it's not our norm. We're so busy saying, I should be different, you should be different, everybody should be different, everything's wrong. No, just here we are, and we're going to march forward together.
I have so much to say.
Ditto. Yeah, I actually wanted to share an insight that I had during my meditation this morning, and realized how much that I am showing up in protection mode right now. Protection mode of myself, protection mode of my husband, protection mode of my people at work, at the company, at 15.5, and realizing that all of us are in protection mode right now. And I would love for Rajkumari, for you to share a bit more about the neurobiology behind this, but really, I notice when I'm in protection mode, I'm in flight or fight response. I'm in fear mode. And so I realized in my meditation this morning, how do I create more space for myself while I recognize and have awareness that I am in a protection mode right now? But how do I create expansion in that experience versus coming from a place of contraction?
Wow, thank you so much for being so vulnerable, Jennie. I love that. It makes my heart melt. Most of you out there know about the fight, flight, and freeze response in the nervous system. They have added, through Sarah Payton, an additional response, and it is called alarmed aloneness. And this came out early this year. Sarah Payton was talking about it. You can Google her, Sarah with an H and Peyton, and she has a small video on that. And she's a researcher, she's phenomenal. And she, was really talking about this alarmed aloneness from a device standpoint. But now that we are remote, of course we would be experiencing this level of, am I going to be safe, and how do I protect myself, and do I need, 16 cases of water, which, I bought like 8 just to make sure that I had enough water in the next few weeks. And when we talk about psychological safety, the technical definition, I think, Jennie, you brought this up in the 15.5 webinar, from Aristotle, Google's Project Aristotle. The definition of psychological safety has 2 traits, which is social sensitivity, being able to notice people's awareness in a meeting, people's emotions in a meeting, and then actually having this ability, the second piece is conversational turn-taking, to allow people to share in the meeting, and to really kind of focus on navigating and balancing both of those traits. How are you doing that for yourself? How are you being sensitive to the emotions, just like Mercer was saying? How are you giving yourself space, conversational turn-taking? How are you speaking about that silently to yourself? How are you allowing yourself to notice how you're showing up and giving yourself permission? The fastest way to have connection is through empathy. We know this. We are seeing this left and right every single day, every single minute. And positive empathy, like, yeah, that's so awesome. This is so cool. This happens in the left hemisphere. The moment that we step into concern, like, oh my gosh, really? That happens in the right hemisphere. And so really practicing this self-connection, this self-regulation, this self-understanding, this self-empathy right now is essential for you to be able to show up for all your peers, direct reports, senior leaders, in order to create that cohesive culture on your team.
Thank you, Rajkumari. I want to send the next question to you, Mercer, and I want to come back to some of what I'm seeing in the chat about how do we, if we're starting with self, how do we then translate that out to equip others, and specifically the people leaders in the organization? What are the things that we can be doing to equip people leaders so that in their one-on-ones, in their team meetings, in how they're holding people accountable? So, Merce, let's start with you.
No, I think we have to shift our orientation. From people who have all of the answers and can fix everything for everybody to being people who are, witnessing and there in connection and communication with others. I was talking to a friend of mine whose 15-year-old is doing, family therapy with her moms, and sort of trying to figure out a bunch of challenging dynamics. And she made this comment that she felt like one of her moms had shifted from being a rescuer to a listener. And it really, I'm just getting chills saying it. It just really moved me, that shift, because, I think what this 15-year-old was saying is, she listens to me and she lets me figure it out. And I think that, all of us people leaders, we just want to fix everything for everybody. And we cannot right now. There are so many different experiences going on. The home life is a shit show. You don't know what's happening with your money. Somebody's not feeling well. You're worried about your parents. You're not with your loved ones. You are with your loved ones, but you hate them right now because here you are with them. It's like we can't fix it, but we can be there. The words "I don't know" are very helpful right now. I spoke to one person who's got 1,100 people she's responsible for, and she just said the hardest thing was just not having answers, and I was avoiding people. But once I started being able to say, I don't know, great question, we're figuring it out. So that's really my first cut at it, is being able to be there and be present.
Great. Jennie, what do you have to add to that?
Yeah, I wanted to share that actually being okay in the not knowing is a key learning behavior to role model for your people. So as a people leader, in order to create the context for psychological safety and the conditions, within your own team, it is modeling those behaviors themselves. And so being okay not knowing is definitely one of them, and being okay saying, I don't know, but also being able to just discuss errors or where you're falling short right now, right? There are still so many competing priorities right now, more than ever. So being able to share, where you're falling short and admitting that and sharing where you're learning from that. And then another learning behavior includes asking for input. So, folks in the chat have been saying, asking more questions and listening. So something that we do at 15.5 to equip our managers is teaching our managers how to be coaches. That's one competency that we would love our managers to put their coaching hat on and literally just ask a ton of questions to help someone get through what they're trying to get through, whether it's solving a problem or having a breakthrough, or just getting through this challenging time, because ultimately the stance of a coach is knowing that the other person has all the answers within them, right? We all have the answers within our own selves. We all have our own innate wisdom. And so being a coach is just continually asking questions so that the person can find the answer on their own.
Oh, great. I just want to, go ahead, Merce.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that we're going to be deep diving into this very topic about how to be a people leader, in these times, in a discounted leader training that we're doing called Courageous Leadership that you all will get a little link to. But we just really felt like as ThinkHuman that we wanted to offer the opportunity to dive deep for a couple of hours for people, managers of any kind, who are trying to figure out how the heck do I be somebody who's trying to lead people right now, especially as I'm trying to figure out how to lead myself. So if that's of interest, you'll get the link.
And for the more tactical, Thank you so much for mentioning that, Merce. And for the more tactical, something that I really appreciated that Ali shared in a previous conversation was scripting managers with questions. They don't have to use them, but for those managers that don't have kind of the natural comfortability or EQ to know what to ask and to listen. Ali, feel free to add on to this, but I remember the questions were something just like, how are you? How is your family? What are you struggling with? And just giving some simple questions to ask and then to be quiet and listen and really listen for what they have to say. I thought that was really brilliant. I see in the chat people saying teaching your managers to coach is so critical, not just telling them. And Ali, I thought that Tiger Connect did such a beautiful job with such a simple tactical thing. Like it wasn't even before putting people through some whole big training. And I see someone's asking for the question, so I'll say them one more time. It's actually Fatma, if you would just put them into, Fatma will put them into the chat.
I think Ali had said earlier she was going to do that too.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I can share the resources. The other thing, I totally agree on, not having all the answers. But one thing I would add to that is I think as senior leaders and executives of a company, our business is changing, right? Like we have a whole bunch of unknown out ahead of us. And so I do think giving people context where you can and saying this is what we do know and this is what we don't know,
yes,
really matters. And so we're in health tech. And so this is an interesting time for us. Hospitals, systems are very heads down, just trying to fight this crisis, but we're anticipating like a very big influx in the back half of the year. And so our CEO today is just getting on a call with everyone and talking about, our product roadmap. This is the, things that we're changing. We're adding video to our patient-facing product, and just kind of contextualizing the changes that we're making in our business. So managers have some grounding and some guardrails around decision-making when they're sitting at their house and like trying to lead their team remotely, understanding the roadmap and at least giving some insight, not saying we know everything, but giving some insight into what you do know, I think is really helpful for people managers to prioritize and weigh trade-offs. So that's something that we're doing. Another thing that we're doing that I think will help managers is just a pulse survey for people that might not want to speak up. So I'm happy to share that content as well. We're going to send that out on Friday, and just make sure that people's basic needs are being met if they're not speaking up in one-on-ones or other forums.
Jennie, Elizabeth asked, what if people don't want to be coached? How would you respond to that question? That's an interesting question.
Yeah, and I love to hear your answer too, Rajkumari, because I certainly have come across folks where, I can even attest to myself. I think our default response in receiving feedback is to be defensive, and so I think it's helping the person realize that the feedback is in service of their own growth. That it's really for the person and the positive outcome for the person. And so recognizing that and just doing whatever you can to help this person, release some of the defensiveness. And Rajkumari, what would you say to that?
I think for me, coaching is just about asking really smart questions. And if you see something that the person to whom you're speaking doesn't see it, how can you ask questions that create a road, a path toward what might help them? And they may not be ready to see that path or step onto that path, and that's fine. But I think it's really asking questions to really invite that person to be their best self, as you say, and at 15.5. And it's always about that. It doesn't matter to whom you're speaking. It's always about how do you ask that question that gets that person to tap into who they are and kind of reach in and pull out the gold that they have inside.
I love this question. It's reminding me of at ThinkHuman, we have one of our sessions of our leadership training is called Flex Your Style. And we have sort of this, what we call our platinum rule, which is don't treat others how you want to be treated, treat them how they want to be treated. And it's so obvious, but we really do sort of think that most people are like us on some weird level. So I like the idea of the question, how can I be of support to you right now? Rather than like, hey, I want to coach you and I have some answers for you and I think you need X, Y, or Z. You know, and somebody might say, you can be of support to me by just leaving me alone for 2 days because I'm just trying to get my shit together right now, but can you check in with me in 2 days? You know, like that's totally valid.
Right.
So I like the idea of asking people how can I be of support? Is there something you want? Do you want me to ask questions? Do you want me to leave you alone? Do you want to get on a group call? Like what would feel good to you right now? And trusting that we do know about ourselves a little bit at least.
You asked a question about that open questions, not leading questions, right? I'm sorry, I missed the name. I didn't get to write that down, so I apologize to the owner of that question. And I would say absolutely, if you're asking leading questions, you're in it for you. Like you're trying to get something out of this, right? This is not about the other person. And when you're asking open questions, you're really genuinely curious and you're wanting to show up for that person. So.
Yes. I want to go back to something that Ali brought up, which is the counterpoint between vulnerability and sharing in the not knowing and having that be okay, and counterbalancing that with providing clarity every place you can provide clarity and honesty and being forthcoming so people can anchor themselves with what there is to know. Anything any of you panelists want to share about rituals or ways meetings are being done or what you have seen great leaders doing to provide clarity right now?
Yeah, I wanted to share at 15.5 that I've been really impressed with our CEO, our Chief Revenue Officer, VP of People Operations, who've been in front of our employees on each company-wide call, providing an update about where we are as a business and being completely transparent about, hey, our business may be at risk, you know, our customers may be at risk, seeing where the market is moving, and they're being very clear with everyone that they're addressing this on a daily basis. And I've been so impressed with our people and culture team, providing company-wide resources. They've been scrambling, being up late at night to ensure that our employees have all the resources that they need around coronavirus. And so one example would be that our VP of People Ops put together guidance around accommodating caregivers and parents right now at this time where kids are at home with these parents and caregivers, and also what to do in the event that someone does get sick and diagnosed with COVID. So I think what's been great as well is our VP of People Ops has been sharing these resources more broadly on LinkedIn with her HR and people community. So I think just the level of transparency has been really inspiring throughout this time, even though, right, people can get in a fear state, but it's helpful to have the information.
Great. I'm going to jump to another question that came in from a registrant, which is how do you address or navigate narratives that sound hopeless from people within the company? And Merce, I'm going to start with you for that one. And then Ali, I would love to hear anything you have to share.
So like a bunch of people are just saying, oh, wow, this is a disaster. Like there's no way out of this or whatever. And how do you, what do you do about that? You know, I think the first thing is to hear it. You know, what is it that people are focused on? Is it the concern financially that everybody's going to get laid off? Is it the concern that the business can't survive? Is it the concern everybody's going to get sick? Like, what is the thing? And then sort of going back to that last question about, you know, what can you say? It's really to be able to say, here's what I do know. I do know that for 2 months, we're not laying anybody off. I do know that for 1 week, we're not laying anybody off. I do know that if you get laid off, there is unemployment. I do know that we're breathing today and we should be thankful for that. Like, what do you know that can start to change the narrative? And I also think, and maybe it's a little bit early for this, but I think there is, speaking to that part of us that really wants to be resilient in the face of crazy town. There really is an opportunity for people to step up in some way, not as a should and not because you're not doing enough, but what does it look like for you as an individual or for you as your team to kind of impress yourselves with communication, teamwork, camaraderie, productivity, generating a new storyline. Like, I really do think that we all want to sort of be the heroes in our own minds and in our own sort of storyline. So I think bringing that out in people, once people are past the, do I have enough food and do I know where I'm sheltering in place? I think that can be a really powerful part of leadership, is like, you've got this and you get to be somebody you've never gotten to be before. When you're telling people about, yeah, we had that whole COVID-19 thing and it was crazy, and here's what I did. Who do you want to have been?
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I totally agree with Mercer's thoughts there. If I could add one thing, it would be really trying to get to the root of the hopelessness. Again, I think that hopelessness is going to be different for everyone because this is going to impact people differently. Something that we're trying to do, also to Mercer's point, is think about just the basic needs. Are people's basic needs getting met? And how can we create just small experiences for employees that show that the company cares? I know that a lot of companies now provide snacks and drinks and food. And so we reallocated like a portion of that budget just to get some groceries out to people tomorrow. And, it's a small little $50 basket, and it's not even spending our whole monthly budget. But like, when you go to the store and there's empty shelves, that feels very hopeless. Like, okay, I can't buy eggs or milk or, whatever it is. And so trying to create those where you can, if you can, small experiences, I think, for employees helps with some of the hopelessness, because they feel like they are surrounded by an organization that cares about them. And I know that's not going to be the same for everyone. And I feel very grateful that we're in a position where we can do something like that. But I think that just thinking outside of the box on how to help people in that way matters.
To Mercer's point and Allie's point, when someone is in hopelessness, the more that they are seen and heard gives them the opportunity to step out of hopelessness.
Yeah.
Just something we're doing in, I think, ThinkHuman that I'll throw in because I saw someone mention it in the chat, is using our core values to help people find a place to moor or anchor themselves that is authentic for them, not laying something on people, but having people have the opportunity to share how those things are coming to life, not in some other disparate, distant context, but right here, right now. And I saw someone in the chat use the expression mood elevator. It was a real mood elevator that was like a virtuous spiral up. Someone is also asking, how do you build trust for any tough conversations during this time? And then they have a second part of the question, so you can answer them separately or together, but the second part is, how do you create safety for people who are afraid to speak up and have their voice be heard? So Jennie, let me go to you first.
Yeah, I think part of it is creating an invitation, not necessarily forcing someone, right? But I believe it was Mercer or Ali, you mentioned this, meeting the person where they are. And so, if this person is not in a place to share, or is not willing, I think that's okay too. And then just being a consistent resource for them, and, perhaps asking too, what do you need right now in this moment? It's a really strong question, because I think most of the time we're not really in touch with our own personal needs. And so when you do offer that question to someone, they can share. Maybe it's space. Maybe it is, you know, some taking a sick day or a mental health day. So yeah, it's just creating the invitation.
Anyone have anything they want to add about building trust or helping create space for people to speak up?
I think in terms of the building trust, it really has everything to do with what one's intent in a given conversation is. There are some people asking, you know, how do you communicate, you know, bad news? How do you give feedback when so much stuff is going on right now? And I think that it's really incumbent on the people who would take the time to be on this call to find out how to create psychological safety in uncertain times to really think about, well, what is my intent? You know, do I want to just tell this person that they're a jerk because I'm like stressed out and it would feel good to tell somebody else that they're a jerk? That's probably not the best intent that's gonna, you know, have a great response. But if the intent is, you know what, as bad as things are, I do want this person to be able to succeed. And if I share this thing with them, they may actually do better, even though it may hit a sensitive spot. You know, then go for it, because intent is everything, and it does come through. Same thing with bad news. Why am I sharing this bad news that things aren't going to go well at the company? Am I sharing it to depress people? No, I'm sharing it to give people the benefit of the doubt that if they actually have the information, that they will, you know, find their resilience to move through this next phase of their story and their life. So I think intent is key.
Great. So, oh, I was cutting someone off. Go ahead, Jennie.
Oh, thank you. One more thing to add. You know, I just reflected briefly around how do I cultivate trust with people at 15.5 is through being very present with every single person that I connect with. And just the sheer presence of being there, and someone mentioned being there earlier on this call, I think it's literally a physical presence, but also this emotional connection at the same time. So whatever it is that you need to do to get present, anchored into your body, to be able to fully listen to the person, it goes a long way.
Mm. All right, with just a few minutes left, I want to have every panelist answer this following question. If you can leave this community with just one practical, high leverage action that's going to move the needle coming out of this conversation, just one, what is that one thing? And Allie, if we can, let's start with you.
Yeah, I would say, we touched on this a bit, but I would say just know that every day that you're getting up and showing up for your team, you're doing the best that you can. And, you know, you don't have all of the answers. So attending things like this, looking at the resources and really thinking about what's best for me and what's best for my team, and then applying what works. You know, there's no silver bullet. And I think I wrote in my LinkedIn post about this, that there's also not a playbook for a global pandemic. So don't have the expectation that you're going to show up and solve the world's problems. That would be my one takeaway.
Al, you pick who goes next.
I would pick Jennie.
We practiced this already on the call. Mm-hmm. The one practical high leverage action, take a deep breath. That is a tool and resource available to you at any moment. And so taking a deep breath, checking in with yourself daily and how you're feeling, filling your cup first. Rajkumari?
For me, if I could wave a magic wand, I would invite people to be vulnerable and role model their feelings, and speaking from that place of transparency, that they too might feel scared, and we still need to get shit done. And to just really own that, even though I'm feeling really scared right now. You know, I'm really grateful that you all are here on this call, and I'm excited to work together.
Merce?
My answer would be listen to the whisper. If there's something that's telling you do it, whether it's reach out to somebody and you don't know why you would want to reach out to that person, you haven't talked to them in ages, do it. If you're thinking maybe I should get a group team together that's, you know, a whole bunch of different people who don't normally get together by Zoom, do it. Like, take a risk, listen to the whisper, put yourself out there. Nobody has the answers, but we will figure it out if we keep listening to ourselves.
So good. All right, I just want to highlight a few themes that I heard in this conversation. So over and over, I heard vulnerability and empathy for self first, and love for self, and growth mindset that nobody has a playbook, and we're each making it up as we go and filling our own cup first. Then I heard clarity, where you can provide clarity in those places where there are facts, sharing them, and ritual that people can count on, because any little anchor or ritual to hook onto gives us some new thing that creates the experience of some small part of control. I heard asking questions, giving people a voice, and listening. I heard recognition and appreciation for ourselves and each person in our organization. The comments in this, suggestions and questions in this chat have been off the hook. I want you to know that we will not only share the resources that the panelists shared coming out of this when we send the recording, but it'll also come with the chat along with it, so that anything that's in there that you're like, oh no, I need that, know that that will be available to you, to this incredible group of panelists who is so courageous yourself to stand in the face of this uncertainty and share your own stories and your experiences. Thank you so much to this community with your incredible contributions to each other, questions, resources. Thank you. And for each person here, go make your version of this real in the world. And thank you so much. Bye for now.
Yeah.
Thank you, y'all.